Hello and welcome to today's podcast. A slightly different slant on today's podcast, as I've got some of the council's senior leaders joining us today. Hopefully it'll give people a better understanding of some of the challenges that the council are facing at the present time and how we've dealt with some of the issues through the COVID crisis. And hopefully it might answer a few questions, the commonly raised questions that people are bringing to us. I'm joined this morning by Sarah Pemberton, who's our Director of Corporate Services and Commercial Strategy. I'm also joined by Amanda Starr, who's our Housing and Inclusion Manager, and by Janet Sinnott, the Revenues Team Leaders. I'll just ask really I'll go around the panellists, just asking them to give a quick overview of their role in the council and what that encapsulates. Sarah, can we start with yourself?
Yeah, good morning, Mike. Thanks for bringing me on to this. So I'm Director of Corporate Services and Commercial Strategy, and I'm also Monitoring Officer of the Council. And I sit on the corporate leadership team and work obviously closely with yourself and other councillors as well. And within my directorate, I have corporate governance, which has quite a wide remit there. So that's legal, it's democratic services, it's election services, it covers things like GDPR, etc. But also I've got quite an eclectic mix. So I also have operational services. So from some of our frontline key services, which is waste and recycling, bereavement services, enforcement, street cleansing. So quite a wide area there, all based up at our Morrisby site there. And also the other aspect of my role is commercial strategy. So how that is shaped within the council and how we bring forward some of our commercial ideas. And I've certainly seen in the last 12 months a massive change and strides forwards in our commercial culture and how we think within the council and within all our teams and staffs, which is fantastic. It's really great how we've moved things along there.
Great, thank you very much, Sarah. Amanda? You're on mute, Amanda.
Sorry, everybody. Yeah, I'm Amanda Starr. I'm part of the senior management team at Copeland, and I manage the housing service and social inclusion. So basically, the housing service covers homelessness, it covers housing standards, and disabled facilities grants is a big part of our work. And the social inclusion side of it, well, people are probably aware that in Copeland as a district, there is a big disparity between the haves and the have-nots. In the borough. So, for instance, we've got about 10,000 households with an income of less than £10,000, about 1 in 7. And we've got about 3,900 children living in poverty at the moment. So we know that our corporate strategy is about levelling that up and bringing some balance. And so a big part of my role is the social inclusion programme, where we have a lot of projects which are aimed at trying to redress that balance.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Janet?
Thanks, Mike. It's good to be on your podcast today. Janet Sinnott, Revenues Team Leader, which involves the collection of council tax, business rates and miscellaneous income due to the council, and the swift and timely billing of that revenue. It's outstanding to the council.
You've also been involved in the grants, Janet, that have been proved so valuable to local businesses throughout this pandemic. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that process?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so back in March, the government asked councils to assist with the economic impact of the pandemic by delivering a number of local business grant schemes. So cash grants for £10,000 and £25,000 were made available to small businesses and businesses in the retail, leisure and hospitality sectors. So the team at Copeland, we've worked tirelessly to deliver the schemes, and to date we've paid out just over £16 million in grant support to over 1,500 Copeland businesses. Now that's in addition to £5.5 million that's been awarded in retail relief, and that's because all businesses in the retail, leisure and hospitality sectors have got zero business rates to pay in 2021.
We've got some, we've been putting messages out. There's still grant money outstanding or still available to businesses. What sort of appeal would you like to put out there? Who should be coming forward at this stage to make sure they can take this opportunity?
Yeah, we do have a key date coming up, Mike. That's right. It's this Friday, the 28th of August, when both schemes will close. We've been informed that they will close by the government. So if you are a small business or you're a business within the retail, leisure and hospitality sector, and you're in any doubt about whether you're entitled to grant support, then please contact the business rates team and we'll advise them further.
And I think we need to emphasise this is a grant, it's not a loan.
It is a grant, that's right. Yeah, they don't have to pay it back. It is, however, taxable, obviously, but it isn't something that they have to pay back.
Okay, thank you very much, Janet. Sarah, when the pandemic hit in March, what kind of pressures does that put on waste services? You know, waste, people getting the bins collected and the like are what people see as a key deliverable from the council. But what pressures are put on that service and how have they been managed?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Mike. So initially it was how we could safely continue with our statutory services of primarily waste and recycling in an unknown and changing situation. So we very quickly rearranged the collection rounds that we had, and we minimised exposure of our crews by moving to 2 in a vehicle from the usual 3. And we hired in additional vehicles to accommodate the new rounds and the new crews. So safety and complying with government guidance was paramount for us as a council. However, as we know, there's no discrimination with COVID and who it may affect. And we also suffered with high absence rates within our crews due to direct contraction or through shielding. But in spite of all this, we still continue to service 33,000 households per week within our borough, and our frontline service key workers have done a sterling job to maintain the best service possible for refuse and curbside collections. The compliments and messages of support from residents, households, communities and councillors we received during these past 5 months have been amazing and hugely appreciated by the teams. And looking ahead, we are aware that the service is facing future pressures and we are contingency planning for a predicted second wave of the virus.
You spoke there about, you know, we needed to bring in new vehicles to add to the fleet. You know, obviously that was brought about by the reduction in the number of crew that could go in a vehicle. But bringing in new vehicles just isn't as straightforward as it sounds, is it?
No, it's not. No. So we already run the service with additional vehicles, and we actually are taking delivery of a new vehicle that's been on order for 9 months. So because particularly the curbside vehicles are they're specialist vehicles, and they allow us to do the streaming of the collections on the curbside. They have a long commissioning time on them. So the one that we're taking delivery of imminently within the next few days has actually been on order time for 9 months. But having said that, we did apply to the Traffic Commissioner to increase our operator's licence during this period. So it's one of our contingencies that we had to reduce the number of crew members in a cab for their own safety. And as I've already said, that was our paramount importance. So in order to achieve the collection of these 33,000 households that we deliver every week, we had fewer people in a cab, but we needed more vehicles. So we actually hired in additional vehicles. But obviously, as in anything else that's short-termism, that comes at a premium cost to us. But we've continued to do that because, you know, it's a critical frontline service to us. Our residents deserve that service from us, and we want to keep it going as seamlessly and smoothly as we could.
Yeah, and you know, the demand on new vehicles or extra vehicles extends beyond Copeland. That demand's been driven nationally, I would imagine.
It has been driven nationally, yeah, and we've got sort of very sort of close relationship, obviously, with our neighbouring authorities, you know, and with Cumbria Waste, you know, so we're constantly in sort of at the beginning it was almost daily meetings and liaisons, and there's been, you know, great offers of help from sort of within the community, as you know, when you put your own call out for additional volunteer drivers, and the support that came back was overwhelming and amazing. So thank you to everybody who did that when we were short on drivers, through to people being affected within our own crews and everything. But yeah, we do liaise closely within the region and with our own neighbouring authorities as well to see where we can actually help each other. But the issue with vehicles as well, Mike, is that certain vehicles, as well as commissioning times, if we were bringing them in new, they have special purpose. So not all vehicles can be used for the same thing or for different things for that matter. So they have a designated purpose and use.
We've seen a significant increase in the volume of recycling since the pandemic began in March. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, certainly. Yes. So since March, we have seen a marked and a consistent increase in the amount of recycling that we have collected, and this is continuing as well. So as we were in lockdown and people were working from home, we saw the first increases in our average recycling from 74 tonnes per week in March to 88 tonnes in April, which was a 14 tonnes per week increase during that 1 month. And then this trend continued each month with a peak in the last week in June, where in just 1 week alone, we collected 132 tonnes. That's almost double our norm. And the highest monthly average was the last month in July of 96 tonnes. So the trend is continuing, and these are phenomenal rates of collection that we're doing. And I'm glad of your last couple of questions, Mike, because we're doing it more or less with the same level of resources. So it's so fantastic team efforts going on here. So to put that into context, average collection per week this time last year was 73 tonnes. The same 4-month period this year, it's 92 tonnes, or an average of 26% weekly increase. So I think increased tonnage means people's habits have changed, and for the better, which is a good thing. And as they say, it takes on average 66 days to form a habit. It's fantastic that we can expect our residents to continue to contribute to our higher levels of recycling within the borough, which have moved from 36% to an average of 45% as people have now incorporated this way of working from home, etc., into a lifestyle change in the way that they deal with recycling. So that's really encouraging. And we appreciate that sometimes recycling can be a little bit confusing, but it's our job to promote an understanding of what is being asked, and we will continue to promote good recycling habits through our comms and encourage all residents and households to recycle enthusiastically and responsibly.
Yeah, and all that's great news for the environment. One of the real positives out of COVID. What would be the message that we'd send to residents who would maybe claim that the recycling service is unreliable, that it doesn't always come on the same day, it's sometimes late? What message would we'd like residents to take on board of why that is sometimes the case?
So sometimes, generally due to things outside of our control, because we are a very well organised sort of service, and we have to be from a logistics point of view and a resourcing point of view. But sometimes generally due to things outside of our control, for example, vehicle breakdowns, road closures, etc., we're not able to collect all the recycling on the scheduled day. And in recent months, this has often happened due to the increased tonnage and reaching the maximum capacity load within our vehicles. So what that means that we're collecting more from each household. So the vehicles do have a maximum capacity, they're filling up faster. So that means we've got extra visits to the transfer station to offload before setting off again with an empty vehicle to complete the round. And we understand that this can be frustrating for our residents, and we value everyone's patience and understanding with this when this happens. Residents can help with their own recycling storage capacity. So by compressing, for example, plastic, i.e. crushing bottles, and breaking down or cutting up large bulky cardboard waste before they put it out for recycling, that would certainly help get more into the containers. And on a daily basis, we post details of all addresses, i.e. streets and roads which have been missed, and residents can access these on our website from late afternoon. And in addition, we do prioritise missed rounds, and we will endeavour to return to collect within 3 working days. So it's advisable, if possible, if residents can leave curbside collection out ready for the next time we pass by.
And, it's also a fact that household waste, the black bins, has increased quite substantially as well, with people being at home a lot more than what they would normally be, which has added to the pressure on the waste crews.
Yeah, it has. So we're collecting more refuse and more recycling, and also we've seen sort of as people have changed the habits, so not able to go out to sort of pubs and restaurants, people are buying in more food, so we've got more sort of recycling there. But we've also, because of some of the packaging, it can't be recycled. So you're right, we've got more going into the normal refuse as well, and that's filling up faster as people are at home more. So yeah, absolutely.
And finally, last question on waste. Due to the pandemic, we had to suspend green waste collections, which have been reinstated now on a 4-weekly schedule. Is there anything you could tell us on the green waste and where that's heading?
Yeah, so the collection of our brown bins or green waste is a non-statutory and it's a free service store that the council still delivers. So at the start of the emergency response to COVID, we had to prioritise the statutory services and also logistically reorganise our resources, i.e. the crews and the vehicles, in order to meet this demand. And due to this reorganisation and our emergency response initiated, a decision was made by the council at the start of the pandemic to delay the start of the green waste collection. However, as soon as we were able, we did reinstate the service, but we had to restrict it to a monthly collection. The reason being that we were operating flat out with redesignated vehicles, reduced crews and adjusted rounds to fulfil the statutory services delivery of refuse and curbside, which still remains our priority focus. So due to the contingency planning and resilience building we are undergoing to keep a full refuse and recycling service optimised, along with the street cleansing and statutory enforcement, for example, fly tipping incidents, we are keeping under constant review the possibility of a reintroduction of the fortnightly green waste collection before the end of the season. And all I can say is if we are able to, we will absolutely reintroduce that, and it's what we would like to do and what we're aiming for.
Excellent. Amanda, in your department, as the pandemic struck and we went into lockdown, that caused all sorts of issues, particularly for the vulnerable in our community. And I know, big role that you had was coordinating all the fantastic volunteer groups that we had around the place, and the delivery of food and Bainbridge bags. Can you just tell us a little bit more about operationally how we coped and some of the things that we've done as this pandemic struck?
Absolutely. It's been an absolute roller coaster, to be honest. So when lockdown first started, we actually had some symptoms within our own team, which meant that all of us, so there's about 15 people in my team, we were self-isolating. So we were out in the office right from the sort of get-go, really, which at that time was totally new for us. And of course, we're all used to it now and used to using Teams, despite being on mute half the time. But we at the start it was all new, and at the same time that we were out in the office, we had a massive increase in demand for vulnerable people, and a need to help community groups to mobilise really so that they could respond. So yeah, I mean, basically what we saw that COVID has been a really powerful current pulling more people into difficult times. And so not only are people that perhaps are already vulnerable, maybe because of medical issues or shielding or even financial vulnerability, found that they were in an even more challenging situation with loss of the support networks around them. Maybe family and friends that perhaps would help them couldn't do. And what we found as well, that there's a lot of people out there that rely on wider family for childcare, for help with shopping. And we found a lot of kind of newly vulnerable, if you like, people coming forward that previously hadn't needed to seek help. So, the issues, as you can imagine, insecure employment, massive issues with reduced income, job losses, which is starting to bite actually in Copeland. And of course, that leads to stress and worry at home. We saw a lot of problems with relationship breakdowns. Domestic abuse, sadly, has increased, and people finding it's not safe to be at home at a time when we were all forced to be at home sort of 24/7. We had a lot of elderly people or disabled people that needed help because they couldn't get out to the shops. And of course now we've got into a habit now of understanding we can get deliveries, but at the start, if you remember, shelves were empty in the shops. And a lot of the supermarkets hadn't geared up to the demand on deliveries. So what we actually did was we had about 16 to 20 people from across Copeland Council redeployed under myself into a new team. It's a totally new team. So basically we set up a whole new department in the space of about a week. And we worked with our colleagues at county, and we worked with community groups and community leaders to mobilise and to put measures in place to help volunteers, to link them with communities. There are some fantastic people in our communities, and some of the communities that we traditionally think are struggling are the ones that rose to the surface quicker They really stepped up, and you know, a lot of them were amazing. And we directly called around 1,700 vulnerable people that we know of as a council. So that was outbound calls to check they were okay. We provided a befriending service with regular contact for a lot of those people. We had an emergency food service as well that we delivered from the Copeland Centre, using our partners in the Sellafield supply chain to deliver food to vulnerable people and people that couldn't get out, medical difficulty, and sometimes people that just had no money and couldn't eat. And, you know, we knew it was the right thing to do, so we did it, and we delivered about 250 emergency parcels in the first couple of months, and also care packs. So, you know, people struggling to get access to personal care items, that kind of thing. But, you know, in terms of impact on services, if you think about some of our third sector organisations, voluntary sector organisations, so for instance, Citizens Advice, the Credit Union, Phoenix Enterprise Centre, Howgill, and the Women's Centre, all of these organisations, they were reporting about 400% increase in the number of people needing help from them. Their phones were ringing off the hook, you know. So we also put in some support around our voluntary groups. And again, we used our partners, not just in the council and other statutory services, but also in Sellafield in the supply chain, to put some of their staff in as project managers to support. It was actually one of the best experiences in terms of partnership working. It was really positive, and it was quite a buzz, you know, even though we were working long hours, and staff had put a lot of time in, and certainly, you know, we weren't experiencing any downtime. It was full on, but it was quite a buzz. So I know it sounds strange to say, but, you know, we got a lot of satisfaction out of making a real difference to people. But we did see the impact. So just two things to tell you about. Obviously, homelessness comes under my department, and in the same period, so say end of March to beginning of August last year, we had 7 actually homeless, you know, presenting out the door, homeless people. But this year we had 27 during the same period, and a lot of that was single people or younger couples that were perhaps staying with family and friends, and during lockdown, you know, tensions rise, and it became untenable really for them to remain at home. So we helped those. We increased our temporary accommodation service. We worked with other providers, guest houses, and accommodation that's sometimes used for contractors for Sellafield, that kind of thing. And they stepped up, and they've been amazing as well. Big thanks to the B&Bs and guest houses and other providers that have helped us with that. So most of those people have been rehoused now into permanent accommodation. We are working with a small number of people who have particular challenging issues that we need to have proper support for, and wouldn't be appropriate just to put them into general needs flats and houses. So that's ongoing, and we're looking at a bid at the minute. People will have seen on the news the government's talked a lot about money for rough sleepers.
Yeah.
Because of COVID. Well, in Copeland, sometimes we get rough sleepers, but our problem is not rough sleepers. We don't have people in doorways like you might see in big cities very often, you know, and mainly our challenge is sofa surfers. So that really means people staying with family and friends. And so it's that group that we're putting in a bid for. We're hoping to get over £1 million over the next few years coming in to the district, working with the Housing Association locally to do that. So that's exciting one to watch. And the other thing, just to tell you about, I think, is domestic abuse. Because you might remember, you might remember, Mike, there was quite a big campaign around domestic abuse, and you did a couple of podcasts focusing on that issue at the time. So just to give you a bit of info about the stats, really. During the same period last year, we had 23 people, families, that we helped. Now, when we talk about domestic abuse in the service we provide, it's across the board. So it's kind of gender neutral, it's relationship neutral. If somebody is unsafe in their own home, then that is something that we can support with. They can't remain at home, we can support with that. So 23 in the same period last year, but this year we had 46. the majority of those have come in the last month or so. Because you might recall, we did campaigns because there was quite a reduction in people coming forward. And at the same time, the police were receiving quite a lot of calls around domestic abuse. So there was a big campaign, and we worked with Boots, that you might recall, that they had a safe place in their stores. We worked with Morrison's and other supermarkets locally to promote it, and obviously closely with the police and other providers, third sector partners that do work around domestic abuse as well in the Women's Centre. So it's had a really positive effect, thanks for the publicity that we've been able to achieve on that through these podcasts. And at one point that I wanted to make as well is, 2 points really. Please come forward. We can help you. We need people to come forward. We're there ready to help. We've got the resources. We've got the staff. We're open. And the other thing is to say that males also are experiencing domestic abuse. It is a gender neutral issue. We have some transgender people that we work with. Yeah. So at the minute, we are working with 3 males. And so what I would say is, if that is you or somebody that you know, we are used to it. Please don't feel reluctant to come forward. We will support anybody who wants to take that service up. So if you do want to take some advice on that, just phone the council's main number and they will redirect you to the right department.
I think that's an important, strong message to get out there to anyone who's unfortunate enough to be in that situation at the moment. And I've seen firsthand some of the fantastic work you and your team have done, Amanda, there supporting people.
Thank you.
Janet, within your area, you're obviously involved in council tax. Are we getting? Is there any issues starting to emerge with people struggling with council tax, and what's the message that we'd send out where anyone is in that particular situation?
Yeah, sure. So again, back in March, the government also created a council tax hardship fund. So it's primarily for those that are claiming a reduction on the council tax due to having a low income, but they do still have council tax to pay. So the minimum expectation from government was for councils to award a £150 discount to all working age local council tax support recipients. But what we've been able to do in Copeland and across the whole of Cumbria is to increase that amount of support to a £300 discount. It just means that the maximum amount of support is reaching the most economically vulnerable households. And in Copeland, just over 1,200 households have benefited in the last couple of weeks from that discount. I think the message to get out there is if anyone is not in receipt of local council tax support, but they are suffering from hardship and it is affecting their ability to pay their council tax bill, to please get in touch with Copeland's council tax team. We'll advise them further, and if we can't help them, we will signpost them, to all of the relevant agencies or to Amanda's team. So the message is just to get in touch, and we will help if we can.
In terms of your non-typical, just on the grants for just about discretionary grants, are the discretionary grants closed now? Are they still open?
Sorry, Mike. Yeah, that scheme was open from the 1st until the 15th of June. It was set as a 5% levy on your original grant fund from the first 2 schemes I mentioned at the start of the call. So yeah, it was 853,000 was Copeland's 5% levy, and yeah, that was used within the first few weeks from people who applied for that scheme.
That's it's fantastic work. The grants have been a real lifeline to a lot of businesses in the area. Operationally, Janet, your team's had to change quite significantly because really since the pandemic struck, you've gone from a team that was 100% office-based, sat all around you every day, to now every single one of you work from home. Well, what's been the impact, positive and negative?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, same as Amanda, when the pandemic first hit, and everybody really, we had to relocate to our homes to deliver the scheme. We were asked to deliver the business grant schemes from government We had to set up new systems straight away because, something like waiting for the software just meant that it was going to take too long to get the money out to the businesses. And, our aim, as soon as we understood what we needed to do, was we just wanted to get the money out the door. A lot of the businesses out there, they'd lost their livelihoods overnight. And, our priority was just to give them that something to alleviate the pressure that they were under, to ease them and to help them through, that lockdown period. And so, yeah, we're all now permanently home based. Productivity is up for us, and yeah, it's working fine.
So we could see, almost, in that particular department, a permanent move towards a fair percentage of home working.
Yeah, that's right. I would say that is the case for us, Mike. Yeah, it's working for us. The type of work that we do in revenues and benefits does lend itself to agile working because of the way that we work. And, as we said, we've got teams, and which is very interactive. So, we're not losing out at all by not being office based.
Sarah, the pandemic and the impacts of it on local authorities are far from over. We've got probably as many challenges ahead of us as we've already had to deal with. What's the key priorities for the directors of the organisation in the coming weeks and months?
So I think the emergency response that we did in the first couple of months as a council was certainly at pace. It was decisive, and it dealt with a lot of issues as they arose. It was the pace that we worked at for things to swing into action. And I think we've heard from both Amanda and Janet some fantastic things that were organised with amazingly short periods of time, and the very positive impact that they've had on residents and people and communities. And certainly from Amanda's point of view, the number of volunteering groups that were set up, that we liaised with, that we coordinated was fantastic. And I think a lot of that great work is going to continue, and everybody's seen and appreciated the very positive benefits that we've had of communities pulling together, and of the role that the council's played in that as well, in assisting wherever we are able, and just being here and to listen and to support as well. I think going forwards, we are certainly looking at how we can invigorate our town centres and our communities, how we build those green shoots of recovery, how we build back a council ourselves that is different, and we can include within that different ways of working. So Janet's already alluded to the agile way of working that we've done. We've seen very positive output from that. We've seen it suits some people, and it's certainly the productivity has gone up, which is a great way. So although it sort of came to us, it's been wholly embraced by the whole of the council as well. But we also see that some people are now wishing to come back into the office, because obviously it's that adage, one size doesn't fit all. So although people had to work at home and it was priority, and we swung into action. So for example, we've got a hugely supportive ICT team who logistically organised the sort of bringing in of all the laptops, setting people up to work safely and compliantly from home as well, which is very much at the forefront of things. So we will be coming back into the Market Hall from September. We're doing it on a phased basis. We've got very safe back to work policies and guidance that have come in, which are well rehearsed with all our staff. And also residents, we've seen a channel shift in how we deal with residents. So we haven't been open at the Market Hall to receive residents on a face-to-face basis, but we do also recognise that some residents, that is their preference as well. Others have adopted the different ways of working now, which is sort of by email or over the phone, and different ways of contact. And I think we've been as responsive as we've always been to those as well. So we hope that people feel that we've certainly been responsive to people's needs and individual needs. But we will be opening up the Market Hall from the middle of September. It will be on an appointment only basis for those residents who need to see us face to face. But that's for our staff safety, and it's for individual safety as well. So there's a couple of things going on. I don't think we ever thought that we would go back to sort of business as usual. Some of our workload is creeping in business as usual now. So some of the things that seemed an eon ages ago that we were working on are now coming back to the fore now. And I can see Janet and Amanda are sort of acknowledging that by smiling. So we've all got elements of that coming back in, but we are still absolutely into the recovery phase now. So it's how we work, and you know, having launched the shop local, I think, you know, sort of retail, our town centres, our businesses and traders, we want to sort of really work with those to see how we can all move forward successfully in a different way. And that is one thing that we're certainly working on, as well as the economic recovery and building back stronger communities.
Absolutely. Finally, Amanda, a quick one. During this pandemic, how important have partners been, both financially and for the support, and some of the remarkable community groups that we've seen, you know, around Dagenham, Clayton, Mill and Whitehaven? It's, you know, would you like to just add a final comment about how important they've all been?
Absolutely. You know, I mean, it really has been amazing, the response. And the bottom line is this council cannot do it without those organisations. You know, it wouldn't be possible. We don't have the resources to do it. We don't have the staff to do it. So we rely so much, and we have an equal partnership with all of those people, whether they're volunteers in the community, community leaders, or volunteers, third sector organisations. In terms of picking up on Sarah's point about really what happens now, a big part of my work now is you know, new work really, which is about building the recovery and resilience in our communities. And as we know, Sellafield have just launched a big new funding programme, Thriving Communities. So we want to support those communities to get a big investment to strengthen those community groups, our third sector organisations, all of our partnerships. You know, in the areas that we need to focus on, it's about food, it's about financial resilience, it's about digital, because one of the things we want to do is help our community organisations and our people in our communities to make that really overnight transition to a digital world that we're all now in. You know, and health and well-being, physical activity.
Yeah.
And young people and children that have been so affected, as we know. So now going forward, what I'm working on at the minute is a new strategy and a new delivery plan to address all of those themes, working with partners. We can't do it on our own, to make a real long-term difference for our communities. Thanks,
Amanda. Janet, is there a last appeal you would like to put out to residents who may be potentially the grants could be a solution for them? Is there anything, any last message you'd like to get out?
Yeah, just on the business rate side, if you know, if they are a small business and they've not received the grant support, to get in touch with us. If they're in any of the sectors, retail, leisure or hospitality, and they haven't had support, you know, some of the cash grants that are available, you know, they're up to £25,000 for eligible businesses. Your typical high street stores or your holiday lets, your hotels, your pubs, it is dependent on rateable value. So if they haven't received the support, to just get in touch and the team will be happy to advise them. And on the council tax side, again, the same. If you're suffering from hardship, please get in touch with the team and we'll advise them further on whether council tax hardship support is something that is available for them.
Ladies, thank you all this morning. You know, on behalf of all the elected members and the residents we represent too, you know, I'd just like to personally thank you for, you know, the fantastic job that you've all done in what have been probably the most challenging circumstances local authorities and public servants have ever faced. You know, and hopefully, you know, this podcast as it goes out will give people more of an insight into more of what the council does. And, you know, I think we will, you know, I think, you know, you'd all agree that your colleagues in similar roles in different departments are doing an equally remarkable job in supporting the community, and we'll hopefully get a few of them on over coming weeks to really give people a good insight into what the council does, you know, because there is more to it, you know, than just collecting the bins. Thank you all this morning. So thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
And
thank you,
Amanda.